echoing chambers of the internet's comment sections, a truly miraculous place where profound wisdom often collides head-on with, well, everything else. I was recently doom scrolling through a seemingly innocuous YouTube video, probably something about competitive eating or mating habits of garden gnomes, or the very familiar atheist YouTube podcast channel, when I stumbled upon a comment that truly profoundly sent my eyebrows on an express elevator ride to my hairline. It was from someone who stated in the comment section, and this someone was on somebody else's YouTube video, and they were stating in the comment section, and breathlessly recounting how many surgeries they had endured for a few different and apparently quite serious health issues. The celestial mic drop. They claimed God was there for them all along and thanked God that they survived it all. As if surviving all those surgeries was irrefutable proof of God. Ooh. You see, this isn't some rare mystical occurrence. No. My dear elderly friend was exactly like this after she had a severe accident at work. She underwent a long healing process involving countless hours of physical therapy, multiple hospital stays, and a truly heroic team of medical professionals. And what was her takeaway? That God helped her through the long healing process. And let me tell you, most of these delusional Christians are exactly like this, or perhaps more charitably, a specific self-congratulatory subset of them. They navigate a treacherous path of medical emergencies and recover thanks to modern medicine, and then immediately plant a giant neon "God was here" sign on their freshly mended bodies. So here's my burning question, the one that keeps me up at night pondering the cosmic fairness of it all. What makes this person special? That they lived, but someone else who's just as faithful to God dies of cancer or something else. Because from where I'm standing, it looks less like divine intervention and more like a celestial lottery where the winners inexplicably attribute their God fortune to a deity, while inconveniently ignoring the countless losers who prayed just as hard with just as much fervor and still ended up, well, not so lucky. The person who lives thanks God that they lived and that God was there for them the entire time, while blissfully ignoring the next person who's just as faithful as they are to their God, yet suffers tremendously from cancer and dies. Which was my dad. He died of cancer, and he was very faithful to his religion and everything. So it's like cheering wildly that you won the Powerball, then turning to the person next to you who just lost their entire life savings and saying, God clearly wanted me to win. And this, I'm talking about the person who thanks God that they lived, while the next person, such as my dad, dies. So, again, it's like cheering wildly that you won the Powerball, then turning to the person next to you who just lost their entire life savings and saying, God clearly wanted me to win. He works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? The sheer, unadulterated gall of it is truly breathtaking. Let's be honest for a moment, shall we? First of all, if there was an all-powerful and all-loving God, then don't you think he would stop you from harm in the first place? Wouldn't the all-loving part kick in before you required your third organ transplant? Instead, you suffer from ailments that would easily claim your life if left untreated. To which you live because, and this is the crucial bit, doctors perform surgery on you. And then with a straight face, you crawl out of your hospital bed, wipe the residual anesthetic from your eyes, and thank God for saving you and being there for you. It's like thanking your imaginary friend for painting your house after Bob from down the street spent 3 days on a ladder with a roller. Meanwhile, the next person dies from whatever ailment, cancer, or disease they have. Perhaps they were a better person than you. Perhaps they volunteered more, gave more to charity, adopted more stray cats. Perhaps they prayed harder, fasted longer, and knew more obscure Bible verses than you could shake a communion wafer at. Yet, they're gone, 6 feet under. And you know the chosen ones are here, typing out your divine testimonial on YouTube. What makes you so special that you get to live while the other person dies? Is God playing favorites? It's the spiritual equivalent of posting pictures of your gourmet meal on Instagram while others in the same city are starving. It completely obliterates any sense of empathy or compassion. It frames your survival as a personal divine blessing, rather than a testament to the incredible advancements in medical science, the tireless efforts of doctors and nurses, and let's not forget, a healthy dose of sheer dumb luck. Consider the implications of this logic. If God saved you, does that mean He didn't save the others? Was He too busy? Did they not pray hard enough? Was their faith insufficient? Or worse, did He choose for them to suffer and die, simply to highlight your miraculous survival? That's not an all-loving God. That's a cosmic tyrant playing a cruel game of who wants to be a survivor. The reality is, when those doctors performed surgery on you, they didn't consult a divine playbook. They used years of rigorous training, cutting-edge technology, and evidence-based practices. They opened you up, fixed what was broken, and stitched you back together. The nurses monitored your vital signs, administered medication, and ensured your comfort. These are the real heroes. So the next time you find yourself scrolling through a comment section, or perhaps even having a conversation with someone who narrowly dodged the Grim Reaper, thanks to the wonders of modern medicine, and they start thanking the heavens for their survival, consider gently reminding them who truly wielded the scalpel. Or perhaps just offer a knowing, slightly sarcastic smile, because sometimes the real miracle isn't divine intervention, but simply the fact that incredibly skilled human beings exist, and they show up every day, ready to perform genuine acts of saving grace, one surgery, one long healing process, one human life at a time. And frankly, that's a phenomenon far more worthy of gratitude than any selective, self-serving divine lottery. And now we're going on to part 2 of this special live episode. And nobody's watching right now. I hardly have any subscribers. But the subscribers will end up watching the replay. And plus, it's 10:15 p.m. here tonight over here in Iowa. So I didn't expect anybody really watching anyway. So let's go on with part 2. So, okay. Gather around, folks, because today I've got a bone to pick, or perhaps a whole skeleton to excavate, with some of the more, let's call them, creatively reasoned arguments I encounter about the big man upstairs, or downstairs, or everywhere, supposedly. We're diving deep into the baffling universe where logic goes to take a very long nap, specifically concerning God's existence. comfortable, because this is going to be a wild, sarcastic ride through the theological looking glass. Now let's be clear from the get-go. Again, let's be crystal clear from the get-go. When it comes to God's existence, there is precisely zero... I lost my spot here. I was looking at something else on the dash here, on the desktop. So again, let's be crystal clear from the get-go. When it comes to God's existence, there is precisely zero, zilch, nada scientific proof. Nada scientific proof. Zero, zilch, nada scientific proof. And for good reason. Science, bless its rational heart, operates on things like empirical evidence, repeatable experiments, and testable hypotheses. It's all about what we can observe, measure, and crucially understand. The concept of God, however, is invariably bundled up with faith, belief, and metaphysical or spiritual experiences, which, to be fair, are perfectly grand things to have if that's your jam. But they are, by definition, outside the entire scope of scientific inquiry. You can't put faith in a petri dish, can you? Try as you might, you won't isolate the almighty gene under a microscope. So when people ask, why hasn't science proven God? My standard response is, because science isn't in the business of proving things that exist purely as a matter of philosophical conviction or personal revelation. It's like asking a chef to prove the existence of true love with a souffle. Not quite the right tool for the job. But here's where the real head scratcher begins, and where I actually start to get a little bit twitchy. You know the phrase, often delivered with a triumphant flourish, something cannot come from nothing, and life cannot come from non-life. Oh, it's a classic. It's the rhetorical equivalent of a mic drop for many a zealous proselytizer. Proselytizer, I meant to say. I always say that word wrong. And honestly, for a hot minute, you almost nod along because, well, it sounds profound. It sounds like rock solid, irrefutable wisdom. Like, duh, of course, nothing just poofs into existence with a fully formed consciousness and a penchant for smiting. The exquisite irony, however, is that this very phrase is often uttered by the very same fine folks who, in the next breath, will tell you their biblical God has always existed. Always. Full will, with a straight face, excuse God's various immoral actions, his alleged crimes against humanity, and his moments of question. We're talking genocides, plagues, floods that wipe out entire populations, except for a very select few and a whole arkload of animals that probably smell just delightful after 40 days and nights. Imagine for a second if your next-door neighbor, Bob, decided to smite his entire cul-de-sac because they weren't praising his perfectly manicured lawn enough. Seriously, why does God need humans to write a book for him? A book that, incidentally, is full of internal contradictions, historical inaccuracies, and moral quandaries that would make a seasoned lawyer blush. If you're an omniscient being, couldn't you just dictate a perfectly clear, universally understood, irrefutably true, and morally consistent instruction manual? Furthermore, why does God need humans to intervene for him and convert others? If divine truth is so self-evident and overwhelmingly powerful, why isn't it you know, self-evident and overwhelmingly powerful. Why does your relative need to awkwardly corner you at Thanksgiving to explain intricacies of salvation? If God is generally interested in having everyone flock to his banner, couldn't he, with a snap of his divine fingers, simply make his presence known in an undeniable way? A skywriting message from the heavens, perhaps? A fleeting, universally witnessed miracle? Something more than a burning bush that only one guy saw, or a vision that someone wrote down centuries ago? And the real kicker, why does God need his followers to defend him? If he's truly omnipotent, wouldn't he be perfectly capable of defending himself? Does the all-powerful creator of the universe really need a Twitter mob to fight his battles, or a bunch of well-meaning but ultimately powerless humans to justify his actions? It's profoundly odd, isn't it? It suggests a God who is either strangely shy, remarkably inefficient, or, dare I say it, entirely non-existent, and thus desperately needs human proxies to maintain the illusion. In conclusion, for a being purportedly capable of creating entire galaxies with a whispered thought, this God seems to have an awfully high dependency on us puny, fallible humans. He needs us to write his story, to tell others about him, to defend him, and to explain away his less than stellar moments. And to top it all off, he does so without providing one shred of verifiable evidence of his own God's existence, despite being all powerful enough to prove it instantly and unequivocally. Frankly, if I were the Almighty, I'd fire my entire human PR team and just manifest myself with a flourish. Maybe then your relative could finally enjoy Thanksgiving dinner without trying to save your soul between bites of mashed potatoes. Until then, I remain unconvinced that the universe's ultimate superpower needs such a desperate human intervention.